Now that I'm not stuck in the subathon, I can actually cover topics at a rate that doesn't make me feel like I'm gonna die. But, unfortunately, the Republican Party is trying to do something really dumb in Wisconsin. And this is something I wanted to cover a few days ago. But again, subathon was what it was, and it's hard to cover things correctly when I'm constantly in a state of exhaustion. 23 days of streaming does that to you. But the Republican Party has a plan to rule over the state of Wisconsin forever. And it's, it's basically just talking about gerrymandering, but we're going to read through the article anyway. Let's get into the fan art section. This one is from Fluffy B1. I like the Lilithsaur so much I wanted to give it a proper drawing, so here you go. The next one we have here is from DYTW. I'm newish to the community, and it's my first time posting. I was feeling down for the past few days, and I just needed to draw something cute. So here is Suris in a maid outfit. This is adorable. This is adorable. The last one we have here is from Frog Tacos. Hey there, I've been watching your channel for a while, and I wanted to submit some fan art. May I present Werewolf Slime Suris? You have presented it, and I'm scared of what will happen when this catches on, as it does with every other thing. There's furries in my fandom! That scares me. Anyways, as always, everyone, thank you all for your fan art submissions. If you want your fan art to be shown in a future video, the best way to do so is to drop it into the fan art section of the Discord. With that said, you should subscribe. Also note that until the end of the month, we are sponsored by HelloFresh, so it's in the description. I'm not going much further than that. We got stuff to talk about. The Republican Party's plan to rule the state of Wisconsin forever. Explained. Republicans have effectively had an unbreakable control of the Wisconsin legislature for more than a decade, and now they have a plan to entrench their rule forever. And apparently Stout Lover is part of that plan, because they have decided to put their points towards making me say, oh, whoa. But the state's legislature is so aggressively gerrymandered that it's likely impossible for Republicans to lose control over it in any election. In 2018, for example, Democratic state assembly candidates received 54% of the popular vote in Wisconsin, but Republicans still won 63 of the 99 seats. You know, that's, I'm just going to go ahead and say that right now. That is the sign. I know there's the argument that, oh, well, you know, we have to cut the districts this way because then otherwise we get the majority having what they want, and the majority they're in the cities and they're the liberals and they're bad. Nah, fuck it. Fuck all y'all. I'm sorry, but I don't care. I actually don't care about that argument. Anybody who uses that argument doesn't understand that they're basically saying, I think land should vote instead of individual people. That's what they're saying. They're saying, I think large expanses of less populated land should have more votes than more people who are voting. They don't actually want democracy. They want people voting to be in these very, very squiggly areas where, like, oh, yeah, no, the popular vote goes this way, but fuck all y'all, we swing the other way. That's what you're really wanting. The Electoral College is a very broken system. Just saying. That's not what's going on here so much. This is just pointing out that... So for those who don't know, gerrymandering is when you are redrawing the lines of a district in such a way that you will always get a particular result. It's supposed to be something that's illegal, but that's not really what happens. So let's go ahead and say that you've got a town with a population of 200. It's a tiny town. And then you've got another town with a population of 3,000. So if you want to gerrymander, what you would do is, instead of drawing your lines where the town of 200 and the town of 3,000 are part of the same district, you would draw the lines so that the town of 3,000 was somehow part of the big city district. So the big city would have, like, 20,000, 30,000, 50,000 people in it, that smaller town would be subsumed into there. No matter what that small town voted for, their votes would be counted against the big city. And then but that doesn't really matter too much, because by drawing those districts the way you have, 50,000 votes get counted awfully similarly to the other town that has only 200 votes. Because what you will have is, let's say this state is divided into 3 districts. The town of 200, a town of 100, and then your 2 other towns, your 1,000-person town, and then your big city. It'll look like 2/3 of the state is voting one way when you cut the lines a certain way. And then, well, you end up having 50,000 people who voted and it didn't matter. They might get a few representatives in his seats, but that's kind of the other side part of democracy. It really doesn't matter how many seats you have if you don't have at least a half-and-half split. Because our current democracy, because our current republic is so divided among party lines, unless you have a damn near 50-50 split between your Republicans and your Democrats, it simply does not matter either way. Or it matters only which party has a majority. Period. That's it. That your dad's a Trumpian, my family's far right, and we're not out of the ordinary where I grew up. So, what does this end up meaning? Well, this means that when not Wisconsin, but this hypothetical state with 3 districts that has effectively 500 people being way overrepresented and 50,000 people being incredibly underrepresented, they're going to end up having 63% or 66% of their legislature be representing the 2 towns that have a very, very small population. Because on paper, on a map, it looks like a lot of equal areas covered, but the reality is it's not. For those who don't know, I actually had this set up because we had to get Ravi and Red Joker their Patreon slides. But let's make it very, very simple. Let's make it very, very easy. For those who might not know. This is our hypothetical state. And we have our area with a population of 50,000. And then we've got our little town here with 3,000. And then our town here with 100 people. And then our town here with 200 people. And then we draw our lines like this. So that when we're voting, it looks like 2 giant thirds of this area are... Like, let's say this one votes Republican, this one votes Republican. This area gets Democrat because when more people vote, more Democrats are elected. It's going to look like the state is 2/3 represented by Republicans. It's going to look like there's a huge Republican turnout in this state. But it's not really an accurate representation of who all's in the state. I was sitting here realizing halfway through, like, I'm trying to explain gerrymandering without a visual, like a visual representation. Shit, dude, why'd you steal my map of PA? It just reminded me that, like, wait a minute, hold on. I probably need a visual here, so sorry, audio-only listeners. Land doesn't vote. That's the reason why this method is incredibly flawed. But let's go and continue. It says, there is, however, a light at the end of this tunnel for small d Democrats and for large d Democrats in the notoriously contentious swing state. Last April, Justice Janet Protasewicz? I'm bad at names. Protasewicz won a landslide election victory over a former, very conservative state justice. She took her seat at the beginning of August, giving Democrats a 4-3 majority in the state's Supreme Court. Technically, Supreme Court races in Wisconsin are supposed to be nonpartisan, but every recent race has pitted a liberal supported by Democrats against a conservative supported by Republicans. Litigants challenging the gerrymandered state legislature filed a lawsuit known as Clark v. Wisconsin the very next day. Or the Clark v. Wisconsin Elections Commission. A quirk in the state constitution, however, may allow Wisconsin's gerrymandered legislature to strip our new justice, Protasewicz, of her ability to decide any cases, and to do so indefinitely. That would leave the state Supreme Court evenly divided between Democrats and Republicans, and thus unable to, or at least unwilling to, strike down the state's gerrymander. Why would she get the position and then be unable to use it? Like, I can understand being upset that she got the position, right? Like, we got Brett Kavanaugh and Amy Coney Barrett, and it's like, we've got all of our people that we don't want in the in the country's Supreme Court, so I get it. But, like, now that they're there, we kind of have to deal with the fact that they're there. According to the New York Times, Republicans in Wisconsin are coalescing around the prospect of impeaching Protasewicz. If the state assembly moved forward with impeachment, then their gerrymandered state senate convicted her. That wouldn't actually be that big of a deal. Democratic Governor Tony Evers could immediately appoint a replacement justice who would then provide the fourth vote to strike down the gerrymandered maps. But the state constitution also provides that no judicial officer shall exercise her office after she has been impeached until her acquittal. So the state assembly could conceivably impeach her, and then the Senate could delay her trial basically forever, effectively creating a forever vacancy in the court. There's a strong argument that this impeachment plan violates the First Amendment. So, if the Republican Party wanted to move forward with this plan, Protasewicz or some other interested party would likely have to file a federal lawsuit seeking to restore her to office. But even if that lawsuit succeeded, that could take years. And if at that point, the Republicans have already won at that point. In terms of what's happening there, their goal is to create as long of a gap as possible where they don't have to deal with having a Democratic majority. So there's no guarantee that the federal judiocracy, especially a U.S. Supreme Court with 6 GOP-appointed justices, would honor past precedents indicating that Protasewicz cannot be suspended from her office. Indeed, one member of the Supreme Court, Justice Samuel Alito, has already signaled that he will intervene to ensure that Republicans keep their stranglehold on the state legislature. Oh boy. Oh boy. The constitutional case against impeaching her. The Wisconsin GOP ostensible reason for impeaching Protasewicz is that as a candidate for her current office, the justice campaigned against the state's gerrymandered maps, calling them rigged. Republicans claims this means that she impermissibly prejudged the Clark case and must recuse from it. But there's a Supreme Court case, Republican Party of Minnesota versus White, that is almost directly on point here, holding that candidates for judicial office have a First Amendment right to publicly state their positions on contentious legal issues while they are campaigning for election. In the Republican Party, the United States Supreme Court struck down a Minnesota ethics rule providing that a candidate for judicial office, including an incumbent judge, shall not announce his or her views on disputed legal or political issues. The court did so on behalf of a conservative lawyer and a candidate for the state Supreme Court who distributed literature criticizing several Minnesota Supreme Court decisions on issues such as crime, welfare, and abortion. Interesting. So they basically are saying that because she had an opinion before coming into the court, she's not allowed to have an opinion in the court. The fuck? The fuck? She's not allowed. Okay, so is it possible for people to change their minds after getting elected into an office? Yes. Because of that, I don't see why you would say, oh yeah, this person cannot judge on anything that they've talked about before coming into the judge. Like, does this mean that everybody who's a justice, everybody who wants to become a justice, has to basically shut their fucking mouth for their entire life? Forever? Until they become a justice? Like, are they not allowed to have any opinion whatsoever until they become a justice? Is that the world we're working in? Jesus Christ. Justice and Antonin Scalia's majority opinion in Republican Party persuasively lays out why it makes no sense to strip judicial candidates of their free speech rights in the midst of an election campaign. As Scalia wrote, quoting from Justice William Rehnquist, nearly all judges come to the bench having already formulated at least some tentative notions that would influence them to their interpretation of the sweeping clauses of the Constitution. Yeah, no, like, why would you basically say somebody can't have an opinion until they become a justice? Like, that's really what they're doing. That's a full-on violation of United States branded free speech. Just, what? Said, indeed, if a judicial candidate did not have some public record indicating that they have some preconceived ideas about many contentious legal questions, that would be a reason to question their competence. As Rehnquist put it, proof that a justice's mind at the time he joined the court was a complete tabula rasa in the area of constitutional adjudication would be evidence of a lack of qualification, not a lack of bias. Similarly, once a justice takes office, it is literally their job to publish long essays laying out their opinions on contentious questions of law. We know, for example, how every single member of the U.S. Supreme Court, except for Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, thinks about abortion. That's because every justice but Jackson, the newest member of the court, participated in the court's decision in Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization, which overruled Roe v. Wade. Minnesota's ethics rule, in other words, meant that future judicial candidates could express their legal views up until the moment that they are declared for their candidacy. Then, once elected, they would again express those views in judicial opinions, but those same candidates would be silenced during the very time when voters are supposed to be paying attention to the candidates' views and trying to assess whether to vote for them. Yeah, no, that's convincing as shit. So, okay. They're basically saying that there's 3 periods of time. Here, you know what? Let's bring up the diagram again. It's perfect. It's perfect. It is 100% perfect. So we just kill all this. So they're basically saying there's 3 periods of time for a justice, right? In this first period of time, you're allowed to say what you want, right? This is your area where you can fill in the airwaves with everything you think. And then your candidacy gets announced. And in this area, you basically have to be a blank slate where you can't say shit. Ever. And then afterwards, your entire job is to write essays all the time about your opinion. But apparently, in this magical zone here, you're just not allowed to speak. You're not allowed to say shit right here. Ever. What? What? That's so stupid. Minnesota, do better. Says such a restriction makes no sense. As Scalia wrote it, we have never allowed the government to prohibit candidates from communicating relevant information to voters during an election. The court's decision in Republican Party should prohibit the Wisconsin GOP from impeaching her because she expressed a view on a contentious legal issue while she was candidate for office. Again, the holding of Republican Party was that candidates for such an office have a First Amendment right to express their views. That said, even if federal courts eventually intervene to shut down the impeachment, that process could take months, and there is no guarantee that the Supreme Court of the United States, with its GOP-appointed supermajority, would follow proper precedent, because that would benefit the Democrats. Indeed, there's already evidence that one member of the U.S. Supreme Court, Alito, has prejudged the question of whether she can challenge the Wisconsin gerrymander, and that he plans to rule in favor of his fellow Republicans in Wisconsin. Last December, during oral arguments in Moore v. Harper, Alito asked whether it furthers democracy to transfer the political controversy about districting from the legislature to elected Supreme Courts, where the candidates are permitted by state law to campaign on the issue of districting. So Alito seems to suggest that it would be improper for a state Supreme Court to rule in a gerrymandering case because its members are allowed to campaign on the issues. Or if its members are allowed to campaign on the issue. This argument by Alito is insidious. Wisconsin voters obviously can't expect to undo a Republican gerrymander by lobbying to the exact same legislatures that benefit from it. And in Rucho versus Common Cause, the U.S. Supreme Court's Republican supermajority ruled that federal courts may not hear lawsuits asking them to strike down a partisan gerrymander. So if Protasewicz Court also is not allowed to strike down these gerrymanders, the people of Wisconsin will be left to no lawful recourse whatsoever against permanent Republican control of their state legislature. Please note that the article says there is no lawful recourse. You can fill in the blanks on that one on your own. You can be way more creative than I can. But that's, not gonna lie, that's really, really screwed up. They're basically saying that because we know that this person doesn't like this thing that we like, we're going to do everything in our power to make sure that she's not allowed to talk about it or judge on it, even though it's her job to. Thanks, Republican Party of Wisconsin. Y'all are a class act. Y'all are the salt of the earth. Trip on a Lego. That said, this is where I want to get y'all's opinions. Let me know in the comment section below how you feel about this, because I'm going to be honest, it sounds insane to me, right? We're just going to be like, yeah, during the exact time we're supposed to decide whether we want to vote for you, you're not allowed to talk about the things that we're going to vote for you for. Can't talk about them. Never. Not ever. For reasons. Just let me know what you think down there. This is all nutty to me. As always, everybody, insert end of video tagline here.